Good evening. Welcome to the first and perhaps only Heritage Society virtual reception. I believe most of you know me. I'm Randy Baylog, Director of Plan Giving, and your host for the next hour or so. We're glad you can join us. I understand that we sent some complimentary goodie baskets to you, but I'm told that there was one that's out there that's still in transit, and for that we apologize. I understand that the baskets include some goodies like almond roca, chocolate chips, cookies, and popcorn, so they keep really well. Feel free to munch during the program. We're glad you can join us. We're excited to have President Mary Papazian and Teresa Davis, Vice President of University Advancement, with us today. As you're probably aware, aside from essential services and specific learning opportunities, we've been doing pretty much everything virtually at San Jose State for the past 15 months. We now see the light at the end of the tunnel regarding COVID lockdown. But during this time, we've seen some wonderful resiliency, creativity, and dedication by San Jose State folks in continuing to deliver on our mission as one of America's most transformative universities. With that in mind, we thought we'd begin by sharing with you an example of that resiliency, creativity, and dedication in the form of a performance of Melissa Dunphy's Eight of Swords by the SJSU Choraliers and Kirby Chamber Singers, Dr. Jeffrey Benson conducting. The unique thing, which you will immediately notice, is that because it was performed during lockdown a year ago, May, each member of the Choraliers is in a different location, a technological feat all its own.
You are powerful. You are powerful, more powerful than you know. You may think you stand in darkness, but you are surrounded by the light.
Wow. Talk about finding ways to get it done under trying circumstances, and a wonderful moving performance to boot. That is why I love being at San Jose State. I'm not alone in that sentiment about loving San Jose State. Each of you has shown your love for San Jose State by becoming Heritage Society members, and we thank you. You've made a unique commitment to ensuring support for SJSU long after our days are gone. That's very special. And there are new supporters stepping up every year. This evening, I'd like to start a new little tradition of honoring those who have joined the Heritage Society in the past year by naming them. They are Lloyd and Betty Hummert, Lynn McCall, Estefania and Bill Nance, Cynthia Jordan Anderson and Anthony Anderson, Arvola Yashing Chan and Jin Xianhua, Janice Bremis, Jerome and Pamela Swain, Barbara Beacons, An Thuy Nguyen and Jeffrey Young Lum, Dennis Costa, Frank and Diane Bardsley, Martin Shorsky, Christopher and Shelley Swerchek, Michael and Catherine Grishy, Jeffrey Braun and Mary Jane Cassidy. We thank you, one and all. Before we hear from our speakers today, I want to go through some brief housekeeping items. There will be an opportunity for questions for both Ms. Davis and President Papazian after their presentations. So when questions do occur to you, please submit them at any time during this program using the chat button on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. I will be moderating the Q&A session from the submitted questions. There may not be time to answer every question during the Q&A, but we will download the chat and follow up with any unanswered questions later in the days following this event. Please be aware that we are recording today's event. We will share the recording and presentation via email in the days following. All that said, I am delighted to introduce to you San Jose State's Vice President for University Advancement and CEO of the Tower Foundation, Teresa Davis. Teresa's tenure at San Jose State has been a unique one insofar as she started back on July 1, 2020, but because of the COVID restrictions, our work has been remote and opportunities for in-person interactions with staff and supporters like you have been, shall we say, a bit limited. Teresa has an abundance of experience, including more than 25 years of management and fundraising work. Teresa came to San Jose State from Caltech, where she was Assistant Vice President of Engagement and Annual Programs. Prior, Teresa had stints at other universities, including Cal State Fullerton, UCLA, and UC Riverside, plus several other major nonprofit institutions. Teresa will tell a bit more about herself and her experience and her perspectives on being at SJSU. Teresa?
Why, thank you, Randy, so very much. I don't know if everyone can see me. I'm kind of looking on the screen. There I am. Well, you know, as Randy said, I'm just so excited to be at San Jose State. Even though I've been doing this remotely, and I'm just so happy to be here with you this evening. And I'm looking forward to a time when we can be together in person so that I can thank you, shake your hands, and just let you know how much we appreciate your generosity. You know, Randy asked me to tell you a little bit about why San Jose State for me. And I have to tell you, that is such an easy topic for me. The things that excited me about San Jose State a year ago still inspire me to this day. And I wonder if there's some of the same things or some of the same reasons that you were inspired to be generous and the same kinds of things that captured your imagination. You know, one of the things I am most impressed with is the accessibility to a good quality education that we provide regardless of someone's financial ability to pay. You know, the fact is that, you know, American democracy and America's ability to remain competitive in the world is dependent on having an educated citizenry. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to be able to, you know, provide a way for everyone to get an education. And also, you know, having a higher education, having a degree really changes the very trajectory of someone's life. You know, I'm a beneficiary of a state education, a state school education. And, you know, my parents, though they wanted to, certainly couldn't afford to send me to college full time, but I was able to go. And so the power of having that resource available to everyone is just so meaningful. The other thing that I am impressed with is the quality of the research of our faculty, right? And the work that they're doing that provides the ability to change the world. I know that seems really lofty, right? But their research doesn't just impact our ability to be successful in San Jose and regionally, but across the world, which I'm so very impressed with. The other is San Jose State's contribution to powering the workforce. The talent that exists in our students and that they take forward as alumni, the talent that you heard tonight in our students in the Choraliers and our students in science and technology, students in education, across all areas of the academic spectrum, is what we offer in terms of, you know, educating our students and sending them out into the workforce. And so I'm just so incredibly proud of that. And the truth is, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without you, without your contributions. You know, the gifts that you are giving now as members of the Heritage Society and later, actually your commitments now and the gifts that will come later, help to provide the sustainability that we need as a university to flourish well into the future. I'm just so proud and so happy to be a part of that. And I thank you ever so much. I'll tell you what else I am proud of. It's my pleasure, actually, at this time to be able to introduce our president, Dr. Mary Papazian. For those of you who don't know her, let me tell you just a little bit about her. Dr. Papazian has been honing her skills as a leader for many years. You know, she served as the Dean of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Montclair State University in New Jersey, and as Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Science at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, where she began her academic career as an assistant, associate, and tenured professor of English. Dr. Mary Papazian is a scholar of the 17th century metaphysical poets, including John Donne and John Milton. She continued the momentum by serving as provost and senior vice president for academic affairs at Lehman College of the City University of New York, and then as president of Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven. She became San Jose State's 30th president and the first Armenian female president of a university in 2016. Serving as a university president was never a long-term goal for President Papazian, but others saw that potential in her early on. In graduate school, her dissertation advisor's letter of recommendation included the prophetic line, quote, "She'll be a university president in 25 years. And we are sure happy that turned out to be true. Today, as the leader of the founding campus of the California State University, President Papazian is firmly committed to student success, open, transparent, and inclusive leadership, fostering a culture of curiosity and discovery, and building enduring campus and community partnerships. I am so proud and pleased to give to you our president, Dr. Mary A. Papazian.
Well, thank you, Teresa, for that warm introduction, and thank you, Randy, for playing MC tonight, and thank you to all of you who are joining us tonight. I have so valued and enjoyed the times we've gotten together in person with the Heritage Society, some of our lunches and the talks we've had and the conversations we've shared. And so to do this virtually is not quite the same, but it is a way for us to continue to be connected, to thank you personally for your extraordinary contributions and generosity, and to share with you some of the news here at San Jose State. And I have the pleasure of sharing with you some information that we released just 2 days ago, but I want to go through some of these details with you. When I came here, and now it's been 5 years, it'll be 5 years on July 1st, and it's hard to believe how fast the time has come. Many people said to me, "You're going to love San Jose State." I knew that already. We are a well-kept secret. We're a diamond in the rough. We're, you know, just that gem that people don't always know about. But each of you do, and each of you has, and you have often told our story to others. But we haven't all often told our story to the world. And part of what the message I got was that it was really important for San Jose State to share the good work it was doing and not, if you will, hide our light under the bushel, under the rock. And so here we are, and a couple of years ago, before the pandemic began, we decided to try to quantify in numbers the actual impact that we had as an institution. We often talk about the extraordinary pipeline of talent in our students who come here full of promise, who gain an extraordinary education through their work with our faculty and from learning from each other, actually, and then go on to make real contributions like so many of you have in our communities. But what does that mean in terms of the actual impact in numbers? Because we are also a very large institution. When you actually add up all the people who either study here or work here, we are over 40,000 people. That's a small town, that's a small city actually, or a mid-sized city, and it has tremendous impact in the community. And so we wanted to try to understand what that was, but we also understood that our impact was not just economic, it was also social. And that came from our identity and our contributions as an institution of opportunity that brings students from so many communities to us and educates them, graduates them so that they can then transform those very communities from which they come. And so what emerged then is this economic and social impact study that we released to the public just 2 days ago on June 22nd. And I'd like to share some of the highlights with you tonight, and then encourage you to go and look at some of that in more depth as you are able to, because we've got a beautiful website now that tells that story. It is really, the message here is really within the guise of Transformation 2030, which is our aspirational 10-year strategic plan. And to understand who we are and how we come, we also want to understand where we're going and how it positions us. And so this economic and social impact study, and I think we can go to the next slide now, let me tell you about how it came about then. It expands on this most transformative university distinction. Now, just to remind you that about a year ago, last summer, Money Magazine determined that San Jose State was the most transformative university in the country. And what they were looking at when they marked that designation for us is the impact we were having, particularly on our students. The communities from which they come, 43% of our students are first generation college students. A very high percentage of Pell students. So they are coming to us from diverse communities, often the first in their families. And we are educating them in a variety of fields, from the arts, and you saw an extraordinary example of that, to our Choraliers, all the way, of course, through education, the health sciences, the sciences, and of course, engineering. And they go on then to success in their chosen professions and having real impact on their communities. And so those are the kinds of data points that Money Magazine was looking at. But we also, as I said, wanted to look at the value we bring to our local community, but also to the broader Silicon Valley and Bay Area region, and to the state of California itself, because again, we do business in the entire state and we draw students from the entire state, and we have alumni who live across the state. Now, the particulars of this study focus on data from 2018 to 2019. And that's when we had started it, right before the pandemic. And so there's a certain benefit to that, because we actually have a benchmark now for the impact we had in a single year before the pandemic struck. We will be following up in a couple of years, in 2 or 3 or 4 years, and we'll be able to see what the new world looks like and how we can move forward in the future. Let's go to the next slide. And I think we can go to the one right after that. Thank you so much. And so in order to get the best analysis possible, we brought in a consultant. This is an external firm, Beacon Economics, that is known for doing economic impact studies. We actually asked them to do the economic and social impact study, which was a little bit more unusual. But Beacon Economics brings with it a tremendous experience in this kind of economic analysis. They're independent, and this is important for us because we wanted the numbers to have real validity. We wanted there to be no conflict. We didn't want to put our thumb on the scale. We wanted them to use a proven methodology replicated across multiple institutions, and then be able to see where we stood as an institution. And so this is what they did. I should also add that Beacon Economics uses a relatively conservative methodology. So we wanted to be sure that the numbers really held up. There was no inflating in any of these numbers. And that's what Beacon Economics brings to the table. Next slide, please. And so the question is, what does the study tell us? And there's the front of it, Economic, Fiscal, Social Impact Analysis 2021. It tells us some pretty impressive high-level numbers. And the next slide will show you some of those numbers. So let's go right to the numbers themselves. Let's go to the big one first. It's a pretty eye-popping number. That in the fiscal year 2018-2019, San Jose State had an economic impact of $4.1 billion statewide. Now that's direct spending, that's the impact of our procurement and our purchases of construction. It's income tax paid by members of our faculty and staff, our employees. It's added value from our alumni, et cetera. Now, the way that $4.1 billion breaks down, you can see it here. A significant number right here in the city of San Jose, 776 million, 1.3 billion in Santa Clara County. Grows a little bit more when you include all the counties of Silicon Valley, 1.8. And then when you include the 9 counties of the Bay Area, we're up to 2.4 billion. But what's really interesting about that, we realize that many of our alums are in the Bay Area. But notice how nearly half of the impact is beyond the Bay. It is actually across the state of California. And I think that's really important because it shows that our impact is from the south, the southern part of the state, all the way to the north in a whole host of areas. Let's break it down a little bit more. Let's go to the next slide. As you know, our revenue is really a combination of 2 major funding streams. One is appropriation from the state of California as a public university, and the other is, of course, tuition and fees that our students pay. For every dollar invested by the state of California, we at San Jose State generate $24 of economic output. And that is extraordinary. If you think about how many things produce that kind of return on investment. And we use this number, we will use this number in talking to our elected officials in Sacramento, for example, that investing in us, like in many of the institutions in the public sector and the Cal State system, for example, the legislature is actually investing, it's not spending, because the return on investment is 24 to 1. So that's a really impressive number. $6.6 million of this is in actual tax revenue. And that revenue benefits local, state, and federal governments. And this is just in the 1 year. And then another $1.6 billion in labor income. And that is mostly spent in the city, in the county of Santa Clara, which makes sense because most of our faculty and staff live closer to the university. Let's go to the next slide. Now, to the social impact. And this for us is as important as the economic. First, we are an extraordinary pipeline for diversifying the workplace and the various entities around our region. 83% of San Jose State students are people of color, and 42% are first-generation college students. And this is very much a part of why we were named the most transformative university, because we serve to create opportunity for students who traditionally haven't had it, but we also set them up on a path to success. And bringing these students here is one thing, but ultimately the purpose is to graduate them and to set them off for success. And again, much of the support that each of you has provided or will provide with your gifts will go towards supporting students in pursuing their academic endeavors. They couldn't do it without you. We also support over 25,000 jobs in the state of California. And that is a huge number. And this is specific to San Jose State related spending. And then finally, our students receive an excellent education, but they leave with half the average debt that is typical of California college graduates. So they're graduating on average with about $15,000. So for some, it's a little less, for others, it's a little more. But this is a very important number because it means our commitment to staying affordable, but still providing excellence is something that we are truly able to deliver. When we think about the kinds of places, and let's go to the next slide for a moment, where these jobs are, they're in all of these companies that we know of in Silicon Valley. Small companies, large companies. This is a very robust economic space. It's a dynamic economy, always looking for ways to grow, and the support of San Jose State through its expenditures, its economic impact, but all through its pipeline of talented students and alums is a really important way to support this dynamic growth in our companies and in our communities here in Silicon Valley. Now, let's go to the next slide. We've got a few more to show you. This really addresses something else that we've been stressing a great deal and love to share with all of you. We are this extraordinary pipeline for talent with our students, but why is it that our students are graduating with the skills and knowledges and experiences that they're graduating with? It's because we have extraordinary faculty who are asking really important, very timely questions focused on improving the lives of people around us and the communities in which we live. And as such, we are also a very important research university. And that's not always how we talk about ourselves, but in fact, San Jose State is among the top 200 universities nationally in research spending. And we do significantly well in applying for external funding to support important research questions. And one of them is around an issue that we face here in California every year, and sadly, more often than we wish were true. And we're certainly worried about it this year, and that is the threat of wildfires and the impact of wildfires. Our Wildfire Interdisciplinary Research Center is the largest such center in the United States. We have a cohort of 7 and adding faculty in different areas of fire research who are not only helping to understand the behavior of fires more effectively, how to anticipate the vulnerability of regions for fires, but also the real live in-time behavior of fires that are then fed to actual firefighters while they're fighting a fire so that we can prevent loss of life and property, et cetera. And so this is really critical work that is part of the research of our faculty and involves our students as well. Some additional examples of our social impact are on the next slide, if I can share that with you now. Our community is a partnership between the city of San Jose, the university, and the community neighborhoods. And it is really about engaging our students in service to the local community. And over the last 15 or so years, we have contributed over $8.4 million in service to the local community. So that's really helping those who live in the neighborhoods right around the campus, right here in San Jose. And when you add on to that, the Center for Community Engaged Learning, which has just celebrated its 20th year, the impact of service by our students on the community is even greater. The Records Clearance Project has helped low-income residents remove over $120,000 worth of debt, which frees them up to engage more meaningfully in our economy by accessing credit and moving into jobs in a different way. And so this is just the taste of what we are doing here at San Jose State. But as you look at the website, and I encourage you to go on our website, it's right there. If you go to the main San Jose State website right now, you'll see the impact study right in front. But if you do sanjosestate.edu/impact, it's right there in the chat. You can pull up the website, and it has the full report, the economics summary, but also some wonderful videos by one of our graduates. She just graduated this year. The daughter of farm workers and has done extraordinarily well and is off to really wonderful work. Another one of our alums, Councilman Raul Perales, and certainly our local Assemblyman Ash Kalra and others. And so it's really fun to look at all the details, and I know you will have a lot of Spartan pride when you see it. And I hope you share this with all of your friends and colleagues out in the community. And while you're looking at the impact report on that page, I'm also going to just put a plug in here for the transformation website as well. And maybe we can put that in the chat. It's another website we've created this year that has stories from many of our alums on how San Jose State transformed their lives. We can use the word transformation, but what does it really mean in terms of the opportunities that were created, the change in paths that people had, the impact that ultimately had, not just on themselves, but on their families and on their broader communities. And so I hope you have a chance to look at that as well. I can, of course, go on and on, but I know you've got some questions, and I want to turn it over now to Randy to take on the next part of the program. Randy.
Thank you, President Papazian and Teresa. Now we would like to take time to answer a few questions. If we're unable to get to all of them now, we will follow up with an email. Please submit your questions using the chat button on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. There may not be time to answer every question during the Q&A, but we will download the chat and follow up with any unanswered questions later in the days following this event. I'd like to start off, we have two questions, President Papazian, that came in pre-submitted from some folks signed up earlier this week, and they're not on the topic of the presentation. We've got a number of questions about that, but there's a couple of questions first that a couple of members would like to know. First was, will students be full-time back on campus for the fall semester?
Well, thank you for the question. And obviously, we've been spending a lot of time thinking about repopulation and how do we bring our students, our faculty, and our staff back in a way that's safe, that addresses their needs, but also reconnects them with each other. And we anticipate that we'll have a very vibrant campus come the fall. Probably upwards of 50% of our classes will be fully in person. I think it's about 55%. Another maybe 10 or 15% will be hybrid, and the remainder will be fully online. So there'll be really all three options. So many of our students will be here taking face-to-face classes, but we've got other groups of students for a variety of reasons who are taking their classes online. And we hope that by the time we move through the fall, readjust to being back, work out all the kinks, ensure that everybody is safe, the vaccines are all working, that we'll be able to be even more in person come the spring. I will add this though, the residence halls are through the roof. The students are signing up in numbers beyond anything we've ever seen before. And we don't anticipate the same level of what we call summer melt. That is people changing their minds midstream in the summer. We actually think we're going to have a pretty full house come the fall. We've had students in throughout the pandemic. We've always had about 900 to 1,000 students in residence, but we should be almost fully, if not fully, occupied. So it's going to be a pretty exciting time.
Thank you. The next question takes another direction. What is the procedure for ensuring that conservative voices are heard and ensuring that there's mutual respect across the board at SJSU?
Well, it's a really important question, and it's important that all voices are heard, wherever they might lie on a political spectrum, from whatever community they come from. All voices need to be respected and need to have space. And so we spend a lot of time talking to our community about how to show respect, how to listen to diverse voices, and how to engage with each other in a meaningful way. And that people can disagree, and that's okay. There are many reasons to have different perspectives. We bring different lived experiences. But what we want to do is help people understand and listen and hear each other. And so this is part of our fundamental values, is respect and openness to all. And certainly conservative voices are a very important part of that.
Now we're going to turn to questions about your presentation. The date of the report is from 2018-2019. Is there any indication of the economic and social impact of the pandemic in future years, projecting forward? Where are things trending?
Yeah, it's hard to know that yet, but it's a really great question, and it's one we really want to understand. I think we need to understand what the impact was, but then we also need to understand where we're going. So in our work with Beacon Economics, they're actually going to be coming back in a couple of years, and we're going to do some follow-up work, and we'll be able to look back at some of the numbers from the pandemic. We haven't even closed the fiscal year yet. So we actually don't even have final numbers, and that always takes a little bit of time. So we have to get on the other side of it, and then we'll look back. But it should be pretty interesting. We know there was a tremendous impact, but we're not sure yet where it's going to be the most severe. And I suspect there'll be some surprises in there as well that we don't expect.
The report states that San Jose State graduates end up with $15,000 in debt on average. Will this impact report serve as any basis for additional funding or to find additional funding to reduce the debt of SJSU graduates?
Well, thank you for that. And we're very mindful of cost, because one of our commitments is to affordability, to ensure that finances are not a hindrance to a student being able to pursue an education. And that actually happens in a number of levels. We've actually been putting our name down as a supporter of an initiative at the federal level to increase Pell support. We have a significant number of students who receive Pell support to pay their tuition and fees, and that hasn't really moved up the way it needs to. And so looking at trying to increase dollars for Pell will help a good number of those students. So that's important. The other piece of it is to ensure that our students, and do everything we can to support our students in graduating in 4 years, because a lot of the financial aid they receive is for 4 years. Sometimes it could be for 5. But every year they add is added cost, and it's added cost without working for salary. So there's an opportunity cost. So student success and shortening time to degree actually is a financial benefit to students, because a lot of that debt tends to come toward the end when they've exhausted some of their financial aid. So that's another strategy. And then finally, we are always looking to raise money for scholarships and for support, and to look for ways to continue to, to what we would call fill out the gap between what financial aid might be and what the actual cost of attendance and books and other experiences is, so that students, can be supported as fully as possible.
Can you give us some background on the recent history of state funding for San Jose State and your take on the future of that funding? Will it be increasing or continuing to shrink? What do you see there?
It's, I wish I had that crystal ball. It's really hard to know for sure. And part of that is the way that the state of California funds itself. A lot of the state funds are dependent on the stock market and gains and those kinds of things. So if there's variability on that side, on the tax side, of course, that's going to impact the funds available to the state to then disperse, to state entities. And certainly the university is one of those. I will say this. It's really clear to me and to many of us that those in the legislature, as well as in the governor's office, are very supportive of the work we do here at San Jose State and across the Cal State, that this is a really important institution for the state of California. And so they are very open to finding ways to be supportive. So we want to start there, because, we don't want to have to prove our worth. And I think they definitely get that. The next question then is to ensure that the funds are stable. This is a problem because it's yearly budgeting at the state level. And we've been having a lot of conversations, different folks, and, the Chancellor White, you would have them. I know Chancellor Castro's having them. Many of us are having them, thinking about, is there a way, if not to do 3-year budgeting, to do 3-year projections? Right, give or take, whatever might happen in terms of dollars actually coming into the state. But we haven't actually made any, they haven't made any agreements on that yet. I think we do 3-year budgeting here at San Jose State, just so everybody knows, because we want to try to create some stability, and we want to make sure we can invest in longer term projects, because some of the most transformative projects take multi-years, to actually realize. So there's that piece. But the state, we saw a cut last year. It was a $299 million cut to the Cal State system. But that's all been restored coming into this next year, and additional dollars are available as well for our student success initiatives, for some deferred maintenance projects and the like. So I think it'll be a tension sometimes between recurring dollars and one-time dollars, but we have great advocacy. We've got a great story to tell. They are well received, and I know the state will do what it can to support us. But it never hurts to have our alumni and friends remind the legislature and the governor of what an important investment this is, and that those dollars are not just expenses, because every one of those dollars, remember that number, produces $24 in value economically to the state of California. And if you multiply that across all the systems, we should be looking at probably triple the appropriation, don't you think?
We're going to move on to, we have time for 2 more questions, and we're going to move on to a different topic. Universities and colleges have such incredible ability to help EDI efforts, specifically helping BIPOC communities in reducing wealth disparities by retaining firms that are owned and operated by people of color. What is SJSU doing to advance this sort of work?
Yeah, it's a really important piece. We actually have a multi-dimensional focus on racial equity, and this diversity, equity, and inclusion is a really important initiative for us. And so it's across the entire university in a variety of ways. We've made it a central priority of the university and for all divisions. And so, obviously minority serving businesses is an important part when it comes to procurement, for example. And so that's one of the approaches that our business units will take. Other units will approach addressing DEI in different ways. The student success centers for our Black students, for example, our Latinx students, our Native students, we're talking about that, our Asian Pacific Islander students, and of course, other our veterans, we can go on and on. And so really looking at each of these populations and understanding what their needs are. But as I said, this is one of the ways that our business units can support the community's initiatives to close those disparities. And I think that's one of the lenses that makes San Jose State so special, because we address everything through the lens of equity. And we have made the case to our broader community that we are a resource to think about these questions as the city, as community-based organizations, as community businesses, think about decisions and approaches that we can provide some of that expertise, some of that analysis, and some of that lens to understand how to move forward in an equitable way and reduce disparities. We see it in healthcare, for example. And I know our College of Health and Human Sciences is thinking in terms of what they can do around closing some of those gaps. It was particularly profound as we went through this very difficult pandemic.
Our final question that we have time for: how has your background as a professor of English impacted your tenure at SJSU?
So I love that question, by the way. So I want to thank the one who posed that question. When I was appointed here, a lot of people asked me, some a little bit in jest, but maybe with some seriousness, why is the Public University of Silicon Valley, with a large engineering school and strong reputation in STEM, hiring an English professor to be president? Shouldn't they be hiring an engineer? And I said, I studied the Renaissance, and I said, when was the last great age of innovation? Think Leonardo da Vinci, think about, how all the creativity that actually, in the understanding that formed our modern world, happened at that time. We understood things about the heavens and the earth and the circulation of the earth circulating the sun and not vice versa, right? We learned about William Harvey and the circulation of the blood, which changed science and medicine. Sir Francis Bacon, who developed the scientific method through his advancement of learning, and so many other things. And I think creativity and innovation go hand in glove. And one of the strengths at San Jose State is our ability to make those connections. We're not just a polytechnic school or an engineering school. we're a school that has the arts, as you saw in the Choraliers and so many of our other arts programs and humanities programs that interact with our engineers and create really interesting, innovative solutions that speak to the human nature of things. And I think coming from a humanist background, I really was taught, I learned to see the whole picture and to bring all of that together and to make the connections. And so we are absolutely committed to that, that intersectionality between arts and humanities, between science, and that's where the magic happens. And we're really excited for the amazing work that's done here at San Jose State to move forward this way.
Okay. Thank you, President Papazian, for sharing your thoughts and expertise. As you know, during the COVID restrictions, campus facilities were pretty much closed down, even as classes and other work was done virtually or remotely. We transitioned to online classes over Zoom in the fall of 2020. Yet many of our students in classes with studio lessons, labs, and practicums found ways to adapt to the unforeseen closure of dance studios and labs. The performance of Surge that we are about to watch was filmed all across campus during the fall 2020 semester. San Jose State students in dance found ways to continue their learning by discovering virtual platforms on the rooftop of the 10th Street parking garage, the empty outdoor halls, and all around the campus grounds. As you will see, they didn't miss a beat. We thought you would also enjoy getting a glimpse of campus as our resilient students saw it and found ways to use the restrictive situation to their advantage. Enjoy. That's what I call resilience. Resilience comes in other forms too. And when it comes to San Jose State, we find it here within those of you gathered for this pleasant, if unusual type of reception. Early in our program, I read the names of those of you who joined the Heritage Society in just this past year. A number of those new members told us their stories and allowed us to post these stories on our website at legacy.sjsu.edu. They are wonderful snapshots of some very wonderful people. What I'd like to do now is share with you one of those stories, that of Janice Bremis, one of our newest Heritage Society members. During her second year at San Jose State, Janice Bremis, 78 liberal studies, passed out while walking to class in McQuarrie Hall. Janice was battling an eating disorder. For 3 years, she had grown progressively sicker, nearly dying before taking a semester off to get treatment. Janice and her family felt very fortunate to find Dr. Catherine Helmy at the University of Iowa Hospital, which housed one of the earliest research programs dedicated to eating disorders. They credit Dr. Helmy and her staff, as well as the nurses and doctors she has encountered in the years since, for helping Janice recover. In an effort to support future nurses, Janice named San Jose State as a beneficiary in her estate, establishing the Janice E. Bremis Nursing Scholarship as a permanent endowment to provide scholarships to undergraduate nursing students, especially those transferring from community college. Janice says, "I have benefited from nursing all my life between my injuries and my long-time eating disorder." She started working in hospitals at age 17 to pay for college and has since dedicated 40 years to working in healthcare with nurses and healthcare professionals. Janice continues, "My hat goes off to nurses. They are my heroes. There will always be a need for hero nurses." In 2006, Janice resolved to create a space for others struggling with and recovering from eating disorders. And thus the Eating Disorders Resource Center of Silicon Valley was born, a place where community members can join support groups, search for local resources, partner with healthcare providers to provide up-to-date information on eating disorder symptoms and treatment, and lobby the government for better healthcare coverage. Through her decades of fundraising for nonprofits, Janice realized that she could expand her impact in healthcare by supporting the next generation of nurses. Ever the nonprofit fundraiser, Janice told us in her own words, "While ensuring for the well-being of your family, you can also designate a specific amount or percentage of your estate, however modest, to your favorite nonprofit. These funds will improve the quality of lives of your families, friends, neighbors, and the greater community. I'm inspired by the legacy of my many San Jose State University alumni who have recognized the value of giving back by investing in the future of our next generation." Thank you, Janice. And I, in turn, am inspired by you. And a big thanks to all of you. Your current and future support for San Jose State constitute the most thoughtful sort of gifts a person can make. Just as San Jose State has a very special place in your hearts, so SJSU treasures you. And for that, we extend our heartfelt thanks. You folks are the greatest. This brings us to the end of our program. I want to thank everyone who helped make this event possible. I'm doing a lot of talking here. That's really easy for me, as people who work with me know, but there's our folks behind the scenes that did the actual work. And I want to thank Amber Armstrong and Christine Lugo from our special events team, and my colleague Annie De La Rosa Clark for their fine work. The slides and recording of this event will be available on the conference site and via email. In closing, I want to close out with another video that Annie and we liked this so much, we felt we absolutely had to find a way to make it part of this program. The video is a collaborative project with performances by the SJSU Choraliers again, and SJSU Dance and Theater, bringing them together. The composer, Sandra Choi, was one of San Jose State's guest composers this year, working virtually, of course. Sandra is an emerging Los Angeles-based Filipino composer who has written a wide variety of works. Sandra said he chose to set Emma Lazarus's poem, The New Colossus, Think, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free, because it makes sacrosanct the principle that America has been and always will be a nation of immigrants. He added, I chose to only set the last few lines of the poem, arguably the most famous part. This video, the music, every time I've watched it, it literally brings me to tears when I view it. And so as you virtually file out of our theater, enjoy the SJSU Choraliers and SJSU dance in their performance of The New Colossus. Have a wonderful evening.
Yes,